y'all. I'm Laura Richardson with Relevate, and we're bringing you another episode of I'm Moving to North Carolina, Now What? So, today we're going to be talking about the top 10 things that will prevent your home from selling. So, our market has changed dramatically over the last few years. Coming out of the heels of the COVID market, where everything, if it had four walls and maybe a roof, it might sell. Now we have to be a little bit more strategic. We should have always been doing this, but I do think that buyers are starting to pick up on a lot of the nuances that got kind of left to the wayside in the speed that the COVID market kind of ran in. So there are 10 things, and I'm sure we could even go through more than 10, but these are kind of the 10 big ones that we typically hear buyers comment on when we are touring properties with them. Keep in mind, we work on both sides of the table, which is so valuable to anyone who's choosing to list with us. We understand the mindset and the psyche of the person that you're potentially going to get into contract with. So one of the top things is cleanliness. We always recommend doing a really good deep clean. Think about all the places in the house that you don't typically clean on a weekly or regular basis. Everything from those baseboards to the fan blades, inside the window tracks, all of that stuff that really starts to compound over time. Buyers are going to come in and look with a fine-tooth comb. Think about them walking around with a magnifying glass. What are the places that you normally wouldn't look with your eyesight that they're going to start to notice because it's going to be signs of how well maintained the home was. Also, when things look really clean and crisp, they think it's move-in ready. So cleanliness is definitely one of the top ones. The second one is smells. So there's a couple different ways that smells can kind of permeate the space. One is don't cook anything fragrant right before you're about to have showings. Some buyers definitely have some sensitivities, and we want them to be in the right frame of mind, and they can't do that if the smell is making them nauseous or throwing them off. The other thing is using like plugins. So Glade plugins, while there are definitely some good scents out there, a lot of times buyers immediately start thinking, what smells are they covering up, because that's so strong and powerful. And then in some cases, especially if the home is vacant, that smell doesn't get absorbed by stuff, like think furniture, clothing, things like that. And so it can actually be very overpowering. The other types of smells that are definitely ones you want to combat as much as possible before you list are pet or even kind of smoke smells. And then the big one is anything that smells with like humidity, so mildew type smells. Buyers are going to go to a dark, scary place really quickly, and you're going to end up paying a lot off the top because of that smell that you could have easily gotten rid of through either blowing out vents, changing out materials, or again, going back to that deep clean. The third one is poor maintenance. So think about it like this. When buyers are walking through your home and they're noticing things like scuffs on the walls, dings in the doors, scratches in window panes, and things of that nature, they're going to start thinking, okay, if they didn't take care of the things I can actually see, what are the things that I can't see that they probably also did not take good care of? So again, they start to go down this rabbit hole, and it compounds very quickly. So you want to take care of all the things, both aesthetic as well as general deferred maintenance. They're going to have a big impact on the buyer's first impression of the property. Another one is if there are too many fixes needed. So as they're doing that mental checklist and kind of noting things that they're going to have to take care of, because remember, North Carolina is an as-is purchase state. So the buyer is fearful that even when they go under contract, they've got that due diligence money on the line. You're not going to, as the seller, make all the fixes needed on the back end. So they're going to kind of take stock of all the things they potentially are either going to have to ask you for pre-contract or do on the back end because you won't agree to it post-contract. So just know, buyers also tend to kind of triple whatever the cost is. So if something costs $1,000, they're going to think it costs $3,000 and so on and so forth. Another big one is too much personalization. One of the big ones we talk through because we live here in the South is sports are huge. We also live here in the Triangle where there is a huge rivalry between NC State, Duke, and UNC. And usually people fall into one of the three camps. I have literally had clients walk into a home that is either staged or decorated in one of the opposing team's colors or memorabilia, and they immediately walked out of the house because it just did not have the right juju for them. So just keep in mind, personalization is not limited to sports teams. It's the same thing with family photos and other things of that nature. If you don't start to neutralize it, so think of it going back to the point of almost being sterile and bland. You want to neutralize to a point where your home has now become a property, so that property can become somebody else's home. It's really hard to visualize myself living in somebody's house when I still feel like it's their house. So minimize, minimize, minimize. Another one is not doing professional staging. Guys, staging makes the biggest impact, whether it's soft staging or full-blown furniture. Obviously, size of the home does make a big difference here. But staging is really going to be important for both the 2D photos to be able to see depth of space, drawing the eye line where it needs to be, and then also providing, especially if the home is vacant, warmth as they walk through for showings. And then another big one, kind of to offset the staging, is professional photos and videography. If you see your agent taking photos for MLS on their phone, that's not a good sign. You want to make sure they are hiring a professional. A professional photographer is always going to do a better job than me, who is a novice. Even if I had a great camera, it is still not going to be the same thing. These guys are good at what they do for a reason. This is also why, if you've ever been on the shopping side, you'll notice that, let's say there's a really steep driveway on a home, but it magically makes its way out of the framed photo. There's a reason for that. Photographers are good at what they do. They know how to highlight the home in the best of ways. So always make sure you're hiring a professional. Another big one that we still are seeing right now is overpricing your home. For a long while in the COVID market, we were able to really push prices because there was such a low amount of inventory that there was just that compounding and organic effect that was happening. Now, with the current market, it is really important that buyers are able to kind of have proof in the pudding. Coming off the heels of having a lot of appraisal gaps and things where they were having to bring substantial money to the closing table, buyers want to know, is it going to appraise? Is this seller being rational in their expectation of what their home is worth? So if you have a unique property, and there's not a lot of comps out there, you and your agent need to be prepared to answer those questions of how did you come up with this list price? All right, your home is only worth what the market says that it is. So just keep that in mind when you're talking through numbers. Another one is not disclosing really important information. We see a lot of material fact errors right now, so double check behind and just make sure all the big ones are there. Like, is it in a flood zone? If it is, and somebody's going to be required to carry insurance, that could be a game changer on whether or not they go after this house. Another one is we're really close to RDU, which is our local airport. So if it's within the flight path, so you have that noise kind of variation that needs to be disclosed. Some other big ones are if there's a zoning ordinance or changes happening where it's getting rezoned, in addition to construction in the area, that might actually impact whether or not somebody is willing to purchase the home. So if it's a material fact, it better be disclosed and it better be in there for the general public. And then another one that we kind of see as hit or miss. This is 50-50. We always include a floor plan with every listing that we have. The floor plan is extremely crucial because a lot of folks are still moving here. Raleigh continues to be ranked in the top 10 of locations in the nation for families and friends to move to. So with a lot of businesses starting here, it's really important that they can actually see what is the layout of the house. While the photos should kind of give you a nice little narrative and be able to walk through the home, sometimes it's tough. If it's a unique floor plan or the house is massive, you can't really see where everything is. So it is ideal for a client to be able to look at that floor plan and then start to visualize, is this the right property for us to visit? So if that's not uploaded, it should be at least as a photo, if not an additional document in the disclosure section. So if you crush all 10 of these, you will be sitting pretty when you go to market. If you have any additional questions or if there's something specific to your home that we can help with, drop those in the comments below and we will see you guys on our next episode.